The Forest Princess. A long time ago, in a big beautiful forest there lived many animals. The animals in the forest were happy and they lived a wonderful life. One reason that the animals were happy was because in the forest there also lived a little princess. The little princess had long curly blonde hair. Do you know what her name was? It might surprise you, but her name was Marina. Yes, Marina, a beautiful name for a beautiful little princess. Every morning she would go to the park near the river to play with her friends. Mrs. Rabbit, Mr. Skunk and the very young deer were her best friends. One day they were playing together. They were having so much fun that they lost track of the time. The sun went down and it became dark. The little animals were afraid to go home alone. Princess Marina had an idea. She said, "Why don't you all come to my grandpa's home with me? Grandpa doesn't mind it when I bring my friends to his place." When Marina and her friends arrived at her grandpa's house, he invited them in. He gave them all the treats that they could eat. After they ate, they all played games. After a time, Grandpa in a deep loud voice said, "It's time for bed now." Grandpa gathered all the friends around and told them a bedtime story. Before long everyone was fast asleep. In the morning it was safe for the animals to go home. Every day Marina and her friends still play, but now they make sure that they go home before it gets dark. Always listen. Many moons ago there was a folk tale passed down from generation to generation. The story is about the Cho-Cho Man or the Boogie Man. It all began with a young boy named Dakota. Dakota's mother had asked him to gather some firewood for the evening fire. The nights were getting cooler. Instead of doing the chore right away, Dakota figured he had enough sunlight left to do two things. He would gather the firewood after he played with his friends Morgan, Joey, and Bo. Not long after, his mother began to wonder why Dakota never came with any firewood. Night had fallen fast and it was too hard to see the firewood. Dakota realized what had happened. He told his friends about his predicament and they said that they would help their friend. Soon after, the young boys were gathering wood in the dark. Dakota's mother was worried that something had happened. She went looking for Dakota. Not long after, she heard the boys. She had mixed feelings. She was happy to see Dakota. But she was also mad that he hadn't listened to his mother. She wanted to teach Dakota and his friends a lesson, so she sneaked into the bush very quietly. Then she picked up a twig and threw it. The twig hit the ground making noise. It caught the boys' attention. She threw another broken twig in the opposite direction. The boys jumped. The mother had a hard time holding back her laughter and a muffled moan sounded through her fingers. The boys were definitely scared. But Dakota was the brave one. He ventured forward. The mother moaned again. She threw another twig. The boys were transfixed. Once more the mother moaned in a low and deep voice, "Listen to your mother." The boys dropped everything and ran. The mother could not hold back her laughter and the boys, hearing this, scurried home even faster. After the mother had picked up some firewood, she proceeded home, where she found Dakota in tears. Dakota exclaimed, "Mother, Mother, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you." His mother held him with love and she knew that he was truly sorry. From then on, when Dakota felt like not listening, the mother would mention, "The boogeyman will scare you if you misbehave." The lonely dinosaur. Many years ago dinosaurs were the largest creatures on Earth. Some were very large and others small. They also came in many different colors. Behind the fiery mountains was a valley in which the dinosaurs spent the day. One sunny day the dinosaurs were playing a game of soccer. A new dinosaur that the other dinosaurs had not seen before came walking by. He stopped and watched and then he asked, Could I play too? All of the other dinosaurs looked at him. Together in one giant voice they said no. The reason they had said no to him was because he looked different than the others. He had a long neck and he was green. None of them had ever heard of or seen a long-necked green dinosaur. The new dinosaur was very sad because everyone said no to him and they even called him Greenie. His feelings were hurt. Slowly he sat down and sadly watched the others play. Time went by and then suddenly they all stopped playing soccer and they all looked up. One of the dinosaurs had kicked their only ball into a tree. The ball was too high for them to reach. But it was not too high for the long-necked, green dinosaur. He walked over and said to the other dinosaurs, "If I can get your ball down, will you let me play with you?" The other dinosaurs decided that it was a good idea. The long-necked, green dinosaur reached up with his long neck and he easily got the ball down. Once again they began playing again. They had a great time playing soccer. The other dinosaurs said they were sorry for not letting him play with them and calling him names. They had all learned a lesson that day. Even though others may look different, we should accept them. We all have something special about us. The lonely dinosaur now had many friends and they played in the valley for many more years. The 5 little stars. She closed her eyes and made a wish. She wished she could have 5 little stars. She wished they were hers to hold in her hands, to keep close to her heart and to care for and to love forever. When she opened her eyes, something caught her eye. There were 5 twinkling stars all in a row. She knew these would be hers when the time was right. They would be there, waiting. Time passed and when the time was right her first little star came to her. She knew this star was a boy, so she named him Gabriel. He was so beautiful. She was so happy. This was the most wonderful feeling that she had ever known. This little star was hers to keep. She took him in her hands and took care of him. She loved him with all of her heart. Gabriel gave her so much joy in her life, she loved every minute of it. Some time passed and the second little star came to her. She also knew this star would be a boy. She named him Javier. And as with the first star, she took him in her hands and she held him close to her heart. She took care of him and loved him as much as she did her first star. Javier was such a beautiful star. She couldn't believe her eyes. The young woman was so thrilled to have 2 stars to love with all of her heart. Each time she thought of them, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Some time after, another little star came to her. This one was also a boy, so she named him James. She took her new little star in her hands and she held him close to her heart. She cared for him and loved him as much as her first 2 little stars. He was so gorgeous she couldn't believe this little star was also hers to keep. Now she had 3 little stars to care for. She loved them all so very much. She watched them grow and she admired them every day. She would take them out and show them to the world. As she enjoyed and took care of them, the years went by. She was in shock when the last 2 little stars that she had wished for came to her at the same time. She could hardly believe her good fortune. She had always wanted all boys, but when she had made her wish so long ago she had thought that this was too much to ask. The 2 new tiny stars were named Andrew and Adam. Her other little stars, Gabriel, Javier, and James, were so overwhelmed with joy that they wanted to help all the time. The lady's heart was filled with joy. She took her new little stars in her hands. She held them close to her heart and she cared for them. These 2 new stars were so tiny and beautiful. She had so much love in her. She had enough to give all of them the love they needed. They were all part of her life. They were hers to keep and love forever. As her 5 little stars grew, she would always tell them that she loved them all the same. And she always would. She promised that she would be there for them whenever they would need her, just as they were there for her when she needed them. Her wish had come true. Having 5 little stars was a joy. Now she knows deep inside that when the time is right she would have to let go. But even at that time she will always hold them close to her heart and she'll be there when they need a hug. 5 little stars that fell from the sky. Grow with all your might. Let your bright lights shine. Mom loves you all. So very, very much. John goes to the city. Once upon a time there was mischievous raccoon named John. He lived with a man named Jim. John lived with Jim in a big house in the country. One day Jim had to go to the city for some business. He put on his tall hat. Jim always wore a tall hat wherever he went. Jim knew that if he left John alone he would most likely get into things that he shouldn't. Jim didn't like to leave John alone and Jim knew he had to take John with him to the city. Jim and John got in Jim's car and drove to the city. John was very excited because he hadn't been to the big city before. The closer the car got to the city, the more excited John got. Finally they came to the hotel. Jim told John to stay in the car. Jim talked to the man at the front desk and he booked a room for 2. Jim went to see how John was doing. When Jim went to the car was gone. Jim was frightened. He didn't know what to do. A policeman came walking by just at that time. Jim was happy to see him. He ran to the policeman and said, "My car is missing and John is in it." The policeman said, "I just saw a yellow car go rolling down the hill and there wasn't a driver." Jim was worried about what had happened to John and the car. The policeman asked Jim what had happened. Jim thought to himself. Then he remembered that he had just had his brakes checked and the man had said the brakes needed some work done very soon. Just then another policeman came running. "I just saw a yellow car go down the hill." Both the policeman and Jim went running down the hill. At the bottom they saw the car resting on the curb. "Whew! Are we lucky?" said Jim. Jim was very happy at first but he wasn't happy very long. He didn't see John anywhere. He looked and looked but John wasn't anywhere to be found. Then as Jim turned around, out of the corner of his eye he saw Joanne sitting in a tree. John looked very scared. Jim went over to the tree to help John. Another policeman said he had seen John running from the car after it had hit the curb. Jim was happy that John wasn't hurt. Together they went over to see if the car was all right. John and Jim took the car to the garage and got the car fixed. They both went to the hotel to pick their things up. Jim and John went back to the country. That was where John was most happy. Bubbles Cup Boats. Once upon a time there was a sailboat named Troy. He always tried so hard to do his job right. One day Troy's father came up to him and told Troy that he was going to have a long journey tomorrow. Troy would need another sailboat to come with him. He had to decide whom he wanted to take. Troy thought about taking sailboat Sabin but Sabin was too small and weak. Then Troy thought about sailboat Trinelle. "No," he said to himself, "she is a girl. Hey! I know who I can take, Shailisha." Once again he thought about his choice and again he said, "No, I can't take her. She can't carry anything that's heavy, she will probably sink. I really don't know whom I can take." "Boy oh boy," he said to himself, think. That's what I always do. I'm going to give myself a headache." Suddenly, his eyes grew bright. He had an idea. "Jessica Sailboat. I know she is a girl but she's big and a little wiser than I am. Wow! I'm going to have a wonderful time with her tomorrow. Well, now that I know whom I'm taking, I'm going to bed. I have a long Journey. Troy woke up early in the morning. His mother had made him breakfast. This is so wonderful that you are going to take your cousin with you. But remember, you guys have to be back at 8 o'clock sharp. Troy nodded, yes mother. Troy's father gave him the directions before they left. What are we going to pick up, Dad? Said Troy. Troy's dad said, you two are going to pick up some of your sister's Dole clothes at Lake Moonlight, south of Meadowland Park. So the two sailboats started out. They waved, see you guys this evening. Father waved to them, you two have a good time sailing there. As they were sailing south, they saw big mountains and birds flying above them. Jessica. Sailboat had idea, what if we go through a shortcut so that way we could be back sooner? And have free time when we get home. What do you think, Troy Noodle? Troy said, that sounds good to me. By the time they got to their uncle's place they were so tired, they needed some rest. So they decided to visit their cousins for a while. Then Troy noticed the time and told Jessica Sailboat, it's time to go now. We have to be back at 8 o'clock, remember? They had no time to waste. This time they couldn't use their sails if they were to make it home on time. They started their motors up and waved back to their cousins, we'll see you too soon. Together they chugged along and they arrived home on time. Troy gave his father the clothes and his father said, you have done a good job. Your mother and I are proud of you. Thank you. The angel. Once upon a time there was an angel named Samantha. She was always getting into trouble. Samantha would make up stories and she was always getting into a lot of hot water. Some of the other angels noticed this. They started talking about how they should deal with this. One angel said, maybe we could teach her a lesson. They all agreed. The next day they called Sam into the cloud room. The boss of all the angels asked Sam to go down to earth and help someone in need. Sam said, okay. But there is one thing you must remember, the boss angel said, you will not have any powers. Sam did not think this was fair. The big boss gave Sam a very nasty look and he ordered her go. Down to earth she went. She had to find someone in need of help. Samantha looked all over the place. On one street corner she spotted two kids and a small dog. Sam came up to them and asked how they were doing. They said they were fine. Sam asked if they needed any help. One child looked at her very strangely and said no. She moved on. Next she saw two animals wandering around. They look lost. She said to herself. She went up to them and they began to bark at her. Sam became very scared and upset. She did not know what to do. She calmed herself down and started to talk to them. When they heard her voice they stopped barking at her. The angel felt very happy and so she helped the little dogs find their way home. Samantha was thinking to herself, if I could help instead of being bad all the time then I would feel good about what I have done. When the little angel got home the boss asked her if she had learned a lesson. Sam told him that she had. The big boss was very pleased. When Sam left the room, all the little angels asked her if she was all right. Sam said yes. Everyone was happy. Then, Sam and the other angels said their prayers and went to sleep. A bedtime story. One day there was an elf walking on a forest path. As he was walking, he came upon a person named Matt. Matt asked the elf, "Where are you going?" The elf said, "I'm going down the path. Can I come along?" "Sure," said the elf, "but beware, the bush is really wild, the grass is pretty high and the water is very deep. Do you still want to go?" Matt said, "Well, if you put that way, I guess I'll change my mind." So the elf left. Matt really didn't trust the elf, so he decided to follow him. In a very short time Matt saw that the elf had tried to trick him. The grass was not high and there weren't any wild bushes, and the water was not deep at all. The elf just didn't wanted Matt around at all. Matt jumped out from behind the bushes and said to the elf, "You tried to trick me. Why didn't you let me come with you?" The elf felt badly and he told Matt that he was sorry. He asked Matt to come with him and they two kept on walking. They walked until they came to another guy named Brian. Brian asked them where they were going. The elf said, "We are going for a walk in the forest. Would you like to come?" Brian said, "No thank you. I hear from Matt's friends that the bushes were wild and the grass is pretty high and the water is pretty deep." The elf replied, "I just told him those things. But really they are not as bad as I said they are. You can ask Matt yourself." "This is Matt." But Brian said, "I will pass on that." The elf said, "Okay with me. We'll go ourselves. Don't say we didn't ask you come along for the walk." Matt and the elf went off into the forest. They were hungry, so they began to search for some food to eat. As they were looking, they ran into Larry. He asked them, "Where are you going?" "We're going to the forest for a walk. Would you like to come with us?" asked the elf. Larry said, "Yes, I would like to come with you." "How far are you going?" "Oh, we are going as far as we can go. I would like to come with you. I'm going by myself and there is not going be anyone around to talk to." The elf said, "Together we can explore many wonderful things. We three can enjoy our walk together. It's much better to do things with friends than it is to do things alone." To this they all agreed, and so off they went together. The Purple Frog. One gloomy, foggy day in the dark forest, something strange happened. In the forest there lived a purple, three-legged frog. He could be found in the pond that was surrounded by trees and bushes. The frog was very lonely. At night he was very scared. He had no one to play with. This one day a red grasshopper came hopping along. It saw the frog and it asked, "Why do you look so sad?" "I have nobody to play with." "My name is Jack and I will play with you," said the grasshopper. "Oh goody! My name is Eric and I live in this wild pond. I can swim all day and night if I wish to. I'm glad you are here because I have some games we can play. These games take two to play. I can't play them by myself. We can play games such as leapfrog and follow the leader. Do you have a place to live, Jack?" "Well, not really, but I was hoping you would let me stay here with you, Eric." "Well, of course you can stay with me," said Eric. "It's dinner time. Come and I will show you where you can sit. After, we'll play follow the leader by jumping from lily pad to lily pad." Jack was curious. He asked Eric, "What happened to your other leg?" Eric said, "Nothing happened to my leg. I was born this way." So the leg was not brought up again. After dinner Eric and Jack played all night till dawn. When the sun came up, Eric and Jack sat by the pond wondering what to do next. Eric suggested, "Let's go hopping around. We'll play follow the leader next." The next day another frog came along. The new frog said, "Hello, my name is Sabrina." The purple frog said, "My name is Eric and this is my friend Jack, the grasshopper." Then they all went out to play in the bushes. Before it got dark, they all went back to the pond. Eric asked Jack and Sabrina to listen to what he was going to tell them. Eric and his friend, Jack, asked her if she wanted stay with them. "Of course," she said. The next morning the three of them saw Lizard creeping up to them. They all said, "Hello." The lizard said, "My name is Tiffany." All three introduced themselves to Tiffany, the lizard. Eric and Sabrina began to raise a family. Each day Eric and Sabrina went for a swim with the youngsters. All of them had a good time in the pond together. Sabrina and Tiffany stayed close by the pond watching the children while Eric and Jack went out to the bushes to see if there were any insects they could get for supper for everyone. After they enjoyed their meal, they would play. One day Jack and Tiffany decided to live somewhere else. They all said goodbye to their friends and they promised that they would meet again soon. Eric and Sabrina did their usual daily routine with the youngsters. The family played leapfrog, had dinner, and swam all day together. During the early evening, they would tell the youngsters stories. Eric, Sabrina, and their youngsters lived happily ever after. The Ugly Prince. Once upon a time there was a little boy named Peter. He lived with his grandmother. His grandmother went blind when she got older. From a young age, Peter had to look after his grandmother. He grew up to be a kind, gentle and patient person. He worked very hard. In Peter's country lived a king who was powerful and kind. The king had a daughter. His daughter was very pretty. The king worried about his daughter. He thought about his daughter every minute of every day. The king wanted his daughter to be happy and he wanted her to marry a good husband. As time went by, the princess grew up. She became more beautiful with each passing day. Her father, the king, thought hard about his daughter's future. The king wondered what he would have to do. One day he had an idea. He sent the news all over his kingdom and he sent the announcement to other countries too. The announcement read, "There will be a special archery tournament. The man who wins this special archery tournament will claim the prize. This prize is to marry the king's daughter." All the people were excited. When Peter heard the news, he wanted to go to the archery tournament very much. He was very good at archery. He was so excited about the tournament that he couldn't drink and he couldn't eat. When he went to sleep, he dreamed about it. When he awoke, he thought about it. He was excited. At the same time he was sad, too, because he was so small and ugly. His grandmother asked him why he sounded so sad. All he did was sigh and answer, "I'm okay, grandmother." His grandmother knew that he was sad and she asked him again and again. Finally he explained to his grandmother that he had heard the news about the king's tournament. He told her how he felt. His grandmother said, "You are good at that game. Why don't you try it? I know I'm good at archery, but maybe some of them are better than me." "Don't give up," his grandmother said, "you can do it." Peter said to his grandmother, "But if I win the game, I don't think Princess would marry me." His grandmother told him, "It doesn't matter if she marries you or not. Just try to be as good as you can at the games." He thought for a while. Suddenly Peter said, "You're right, grandmother. I will try it." Peter trained himself. Soon he was ready for the game. On the day of the games he got ready to leave for the castle early in the morning. He wasn't happy about leaving his grandmother alone. He was worried about her. But his grandmother told him he had to go. Before he left, his grandmother gave him a red rose. "After you win, give this rose to the princess. But before you give this to her, close your eyes and smell its beauty. Be strong. And be brave and win the game." He said goodbye and left his grandmother and went to the castle. When he arrived, Peter saw the big castle. There were many people there. He was afraid to go in. Peter thought and thought. He almost went back to his grandmother and then he heard his grandmother's words again. Peter knew he could not turn back. He went across the castle's bridge and through the castle's large gate. Inside he saw even more people. There were soldiers all around him. He was so afraid. Everybody was excited about the game. Peter stood in line waiting for the game to start. He felt that everybody was looking at him. Strangely, because he wasn't a prince or a knight or anyone important. The buzz of shopkeepers selling their wares and people talking and guessing who would win filled the streets. What kind of person was going to marry the princess? Would it be a knight? Or perhaps a prince? There were many excellent archers at the tournament. Peter nervously waited for his turn. Finally the judge called his name. Peter stepped forward. He placed an arrow on his bow. He pulled the string, aimed and released the arrow. It flew through the air and it hit the target. The crowd gasped. Peter looked and he could not believe it. Peter had been lucky. He had won the prize. Nobody thought that Peter was going to win. Slowly Peter walked to the front. He stood in front of the king and the princess. With his eyes looking down, he offered the rose to the princess. But before he gave her the rose, he smelled its beauty, just like his grandmother had told him. Magically, Peter turned into a strong, tall, and handsome man. Everybody was surprised, including the king and his daughter. Peter and the princess married and lived happy ever after. The carnival. One day, JD, Brenda, and I were watching TV and we saw an ad on TV. The carnival was in town on August 8th to 14th. JD and Brenda said, "Can we go this year, Mom?" I smiled at them and said, "Yes, this year we will go." The children and I saved our money. When August came around, we went to the carnival at the exhibition grounds. We were excited. The children wanted to see all the animals at the carnival. They wanted to see the tigers with their two-colored coats, the elephants, the bears, the wolves and the unicorns. We started to walk. The first animals we saw were the orange and black tigers and the white and black tigers. The big cats put on a performance for us. I said to the children, "The orange and black tiger looks like Tigger. See the way he walked across and pounced down off the stand. It looked like he wanted to talk to his mom and the other two tigers. They look like young tigers. Look, the white and black and the orange and black tigers are talking to you." JD and Brenda were really excited. Then the tiger that looked like Tigger began to talk to me. "How come you say that I look like Tigger?" asked the tiger. I was surprised that he was talking to me. I think you look like Tigger because of the way you walked and pounced off the stands. You remind me of the cartoon of Tigger. You pounce like he pounces in the forest." Just then the two young tigers, the ones that were white and black, started talking to JD. "It must be nice to have freedom. You are out in the world. You are not stuck in a cage and made to go from town to cities." JD looked at the tigers and said, "Yes, it is nice to be free. But still it must be nice to travel. We don't travel around much to different cities or towns." The other orange and black tiger started to talk toward Brenda. "Are you having fun looking and talking to all the animals?" Brenda replied, "Yes, we are having fun. But we haven't seen all the animals yet." I heard my daughter's conversation and said, "Come, let's go see the bears and then the elephants." "Yes. Let's," Brenda and JD said. We said goodbye to the tigers and we walked on to see the bears in their cages. After, we went to the elephants' cages. We stopped and talked with the elephants. We asked the elephants how they liked being in the carnival and how old they were. One elephant said that she was about 50 years old and the other one said he was about 25 years old. They said that they had been in the carnival for all of their lives. Our next stop was at the wolves. We all like wolves, so once again we stopped to talk with them. The wolves talked to JD and Brenda. They told us that they had only been in the carnival for a few years. They were surprised to see how many people like to see the different animals. But they were sad that not many people stopped to talk. "So, do you guys like us?" the wolves asked. JD and Brenda said, "Yes, of course. We like wolves very much. But we are sorry we can't stay and talk longer. It's getting late and we still have to go to see the unicorns. They are the most beautiful animals of all. Thank you for talking with us. Goodbye." Off we went to see the unicorns. The unicorns had overheard the children saying that they thought that unicorns were such beautiful animals. Before anyone could say anything, the unicorns thanked the children. "You know, many people do not believe in us, and because of that they can never see us. Oh, we believe in you and we find you to be the most fantastic animals. But it's so late now. And we have to go." JD, Brenda, and I thanked the unicorns. As we started to leave, the unicorns called out to the other animals, "Let's all say goodbye." One unicorn said, "I will count to 3 and we will say goodbye." And he began to count. 1, 2, 3. And with a loud noise that almost sounded like thunder, all of the animals said goodbye and good night. It had been a very special day for us. We had often talked to the animals, but this was the first time that the animals had talked to us. A Christmas story. Once upon a Christmas holiday there was a poor family. There was a mother and father and 2 little ones. The family was so poor that they had no place to live except in an old car out in the back streets. People that knew of them didn't understand their situation because they didn't try to understand. The town people would call them names and point fingers at them. One day the 2 little ones went up to their mother and father and asked, "Why do we live in a car and not in a house? Why aren't we in school?" They had tears rolling down their cheeks. Both parents sat them down. "Dear children, we do not have these things because we don't have jobs. We have tried to hang on to our jobs. It seems the people we always help are too worried. They worry about the way people look and not the work itself. We have little money to buy new clothes. We've tried to ask people for help but we can't get it. That's why we aren't able to have the things that others have." The children understood and didn't ever ask again. Their parents sent them to the car to go to bed. It was the next day and it was the mother's turn to go out and see if anyone would hire her. There was no luck at all. So the mother and father sat down and talked about what they could try to do about the problems and make their children's dream come true. That day a rich man, by the name of Joe, came into town. Joe had so much money in his pockets that he didn't know what to do with it all. Joe was the kind of person that couldn't have children. He wished that one day he could have children. He thought about adopting children someday. He wasn't quite sure what to do. Joe had a heart of gold. He never thought about himself, he was always thinking of others and what they need. As he was driving along this night he noticed a family of 4. They were picking through the garbage for food. To keep warm they stood by a flaming garbage bin. He noticed that they were wearing rags. Their faces were dirty and their hair was messed really badly. Joe walked by and thought some more about what he should do. The next day the mother and father went out to look for work. It was coming close to Christmas Eve and they wanted to try to find work once more before everything had closed. Door to door they went. Everywhere they went they were booted out, rejected, and doors slammed in their faces. Joe was to witness this and he felt really badly. He couldn't believe how selfish the people who lived in town were. Joe wanted to do something about it. He thought for a while, then he realized this family had something that he wanted and that was a family. Joe had something that they wanted. This was a home. So Joe decided he would approach them. "I have been watching you since I came into town. I have seen you and your wife trying to make a living, but when you have not been able to find work, you can't make a living that way. I've been thinking for couple of days. I have something you want. This is a home. You have something that I want. This is a family. I want to invite you into my home for Christmas. After Christmas, if you want to be a part of my family, or should I say if I could be a part of your family, we can discuss it. The family said, yes. After Christmas they all agreed that they should become a family. The children began school. The parents got a job and they lived happy ever after. A clever rabbit and a witch. A long, long time ago, there was a rabbit that lived in a beautiful mountain. He was a happy and clever rabbit. His best friend was an old eagle. Also there on the mountain was a witch. The witch liked to eat children. She would always go outside to search for her food. One day as the rabbit played at the foot of the mountain, he saw a lady crying. She cried so that the rabbit felt pity on her. The rabbit ran to the lady. Mama, what is the cause for your crying? The lady couldn't stop crying. I went to the mill an hour ago. When I got back my baby had been stolen. I can't live without my baby. She continued crying. Don't cry, said the rabbit. My friends and I will try to find your baby. Quickly follow me. The rabbit was pretty sure that was the witch had taken the child. He was afraid of the witch had eaten the baby already. He hoped they were not too late. The rabbit found the eagle quickly. He told the story to him. He asked the eagle to help him search. The eagle flew off. Just a few minutes later, the eagle came back. He had found the baby. The witch had put him in a cage and hung it up in the tree in front of her house. The eagle also told the rabbit that the witch was getting ready to cook, so they must hurry. Otherwise it would be late. The rabbit ran to the witch house as the eagle followed in the air above. They saw smoke coming out from the witch's house. They knew she was about to start cooking. The rabbit was so worried. Suddenly he got an idea. He shouted, Witch! Come here, I am going to dance for you. The witch didn't want to see the rabbit dancing. She said, Don't bother me, I am busy cooking. I have no time to watch you dancing. I want to eat my delicious food. The rabbit didn't give up. He shouted again, Witch, I learned a new dance. It is really good. Come here. I will show you my new style dance. The time is still early. It is not late. After you finish watching my new style dance, you will have lots of time to eat. Come, witch. Finally the witch came out of the house. She watched the rabbit dance in her backyard. She laughed and she laughed. She forgot her lunch. After a half an hour, the witch suddenly remembered her cooking and she said, Rabbit, stop dancing. I must continue cooking. And then back into her house, she went. She found that cage was no longer in the tree. It was then that she became aware that the rabbit had played a trick on her. The baby had been taken away while she was watching the rabbits dancing. She was really angry and went back into the yard to find the rabbit, but the rabbit had already gone. Well, young trickster, if I ever get hold of you, I'll eat you! Screamed the witch. The eagle had taken the baby home while the rabbit was dancing. The lady got her baby. And she was so very happy. The witch was so very angry. She tried to find the rabbit everywhere. But she could not find him. Until one day, she heard a drumming sound coming from the mountain. She ran toward the sound. There she found the rabbit playing the drums. She cackled loudly, I found you at last. You will be sorry that you tricked me and stole my lunch. Now you will be my lunch. The rabbit pretended he didn't understand. The witch said, What are you talking about? There are hundreds of rabbits on the mountain. It must be another rabbit. I am a good rabbit. Where? Where are the others? The witch asked. The rabbit pointed to the big hive in the tree, and he told the witch, that is a new drum. Hit it hard. When the rabbits hear the sound, they will come out. The witch believed the rabbit, and took the drumstick. Ready, the rabbit told her, I'll say 1, 2, 3, and you begin to hit the drum. Then the rabbit ran far from the tree, and loudly shouted, 1, 2, 3, begin. The witch hit the hive hard. You know what happened then? A swarm of the wasps came out. The witch couldn't hide anywhere. The wasps stung her. She screamed and ran away. She was never seen again. The unicorn named Wild One. This story begins a long time ago in the 1800s. The story takes place in a beautiful meadow. There were high mountains surrounding the meadow. The people in the village often told tales that something evil lived in the meadow. People told tales of mysterious creatures. People from the nearby village were frightened by the tales. Most would not go into the meadow. There was only one person, Tanuse was her name, who did not fear the stories. Her grandmother had told her about the strange creature that the people feared. She had told Tanuse that this creature was special and only people who believed would see it. Her grandmother had called it a unicorn. Tanuse remembered this story. She would go to the meadow and to look for the unicorn, but she had never seen it. But she believed in it. One day Tanuse was in meadow walking. Once again she was looking for the unicorn. As she walked, she saw something from the corner of her eye. She turned to look, and there it was, the unicorn. The unicorn had a beautiful white coat. Its long mane was covered with gold dust. His wings looked like they were on fire. When Tanuse saw it, she remembered something more from grandmother's story. The unicorn's horn was said to have magic powers. Grandmother had said that if a person touches it, she would receive 3 wishes. Tanuse looked at the beautiful unicorn. She slowly walked toward it. She reached out her hand and stroked its mane gently. The unicorn knelt and allowed Tanuse to get on its back. Together they rode to the village. When Tanuse's mother saw them, she called out, "Get off that wild thing!" Tanuse said, "No. It's not wild, mother. All that he needs is a friend. He needs some love. Mom, come for a ride with me." Mother said, "No, Tanuse. We don't know anything about him. What does he eat?" "He eats grass. Grandmother told me about him when I was young. She told me that I could make a wish if I touch its horn and that the wish would come true." Tanuse touched its horn and she made a wish. She wished for a castle. Suddenly the castle appeared. It had solid gold trim. The ballroom floor was made out of pearls. The pillars were solid gold. Tanuse wished a second time. This time she wished for more unicorns so that her unicorn could be happy for the rest of his life, and then there were more unicorns walking and playing in the meadow. She made a third wish and she wished for a prince for herself, and the prince appeared. The prince was having so much fun with the beautiful unicorns. He was so amazed and happy that he made his wishes for Tanuse's mom. The prince wished for a king for Tanuse's mom. Tanuse's mother was so happy that she could have all the things that she wanted in her life. Now they could live happily ever after, and they did. Michael. Once upon a time there was a mouse named Michael and there was a dog named Butch. They both lived in a 2-story house with a family of 7. Michael lived in the basement, all by himself. Michael was a lonely mouse. He couldn't talk to anyone. The little mouse often went upstairs to go see what was going on. Butch was a huge bulldog, but he was a friendly dog to everyone. He was light brown with a short tail. One night as the Simpson family was watching movies, Butch decided to go down to the basement and check it out. When he got down there, he sniffed around the little mouse on the old couch. Michael watched as Butch sniffed around his humble home. Butch finally noticed Michael shaking in one corner of couch. Butch slowly moved up to him. Butch looked curiously at Michael. He asked, "Who are you?" Michael's mouth was wide open. He was shocked to hear this creature talking to him. Michael said in a shaky voice, "My name is Michael." Butch looked at Michael and told him, "Don't be afraid." Butch started talking to Michael about where he came from and the places he has been. Michael felt at ease as Butch started talking to him about his life. Weeks passed by as Michael and Butch got to know each other. Both Michael and Butch started hanging out at Michael's place, in the basement. From there they became friends. After so many years of being alone, Michael's prayers were answered. He was very happy. He found a friend to talk to. The promise. Once upon a time, in a village, lived a mother and a daughter. They were very poor. In this same village there also lived a very rich man. He was a chief in the village. He was a very bad chief. The people who lived in the village hated him, but they couldn't do anything to him. The poor people were forced to work in his fields. He paid them so little. They had to work all day long. The girl's mother had to be the chief's employee also. She too had to work all day long. When she got home she was exhausted. Most times she fell asleep as soon as she arrived home. Before the rich man had come to the village, the girl's mother would take the girl on her knee and tell her stories. Now the mother never really had time to talk to her daughter. The daughter had not heard story from her mom for a long, long time. She missed these stories. She had not talked to her mother for such a long time. The girl felt pity for her mom. She knew that her mother was tired. But secretly she really wanted to hear a story from her. Also she had a lot of questions to ask. The mother had made plans to send the girl away to school to study and get an education. She wondered why. She wanted to know. And she asked her mother many times. One day when her mom was not feeling well and could not go to work, she called her daughter. She sat beside her mother and the mother told a story to the daughter about two birds. The mom said, "Once upon a time there were two brother birds that lived in a nest. They couldn't fly well yet. One day their mom went to look for food for them. A storm came. The wind blew hard. It blew so hard that the young birds were thrown from the nest and they were separated. One bird flew to the another country. There a gentleman caught him and looked after him very well. He grew up to be well education, gentle and kind. He had a good life. The other bird flew to the ground. There a bad man caught him and forced him to work. The second bird grew up to be like the mean man. He became a bad bird. Now she understood her mom's story and she could see that her mother loved her enough to send her away so that she might have a better life. She promised her mom that when she grew up she would leave and get an education and be a good girl. She promised her that she would return and take her mother away to a better place. Her mother hugged her and told the girl that she was proud of her and that she was happy to hear her promise. When the girl grew up she did leave her mother and went away to study. She kept her promises to her mother and they live happily ever after.